All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this month's KeyShot webinar. My name is Rex Roberts, and I'm a digital artist and UX designer here at Luxion. Today I'll be going over some of the new features available in the latest release of KeyShot 5.1. A recording of this video will be available to watch at any time on our YouTube page. So that's youtube.com/KeyShot3D. If you have to leave early or if you just want to watch it again, that'll be available in probably about a week. We'll see that video posted up to the YouTube page. So in case you have not updated to 5.1 yet, you can find the update on our webpage under the download section, an update, and you can select your appropriate version here and go ahead and update to the latest. You can see some of the new features that we'll be going over here today. Also, under Features, What's New, you can see many of the new features from KeyShot 5 and then also the 5.1 highlights. So I'll be going over some of these larger updates today and sprinkling in some of the smaller little stuff as we go along. You can also find more information on what's new in the What's New guide. So this will provide a little more explanation, give some detail on how to use some of these new features. Okay, so before I get into KeyShot and I start demoing some of the new features, there's a couple items that I want to touch on that I won't be able to show you inside of KeyShot. So first of all, we have some new upgrade options. So for the users of KeyShot CAD Edition, we now have some more upgrade options. So under our Buy page, we can go into the upgrades, and if we scroll down to the bottom, we can see you can now upgrade from KeyShot CAD editions. So the CAD editions are KeyShot for IronCAD, for Delcam products, Space Claim, etc. So you can now seamlessly upgrade to a Pro Node Lock license, and you can also seamlessly add on animation and VR. So if you're using the KeyShot CAD edition, it's very simple now to upgrade and get those add-ons. And if you have any questions about KeyShot CAD edition or anything sales related, you can always contact sales@luxion.com and they'd be happy to help you out. Okay, so let's quickly go back to our What's New page and see what we got here. So since I'm on a Windows machine today, I won't be able to show you the Retina support, but I can quickly just show some screenshots from my Mac machine here. So here we have Retina mode off and Retina mode on. Retina is available through several Apple products. I'm using the MacBook Pro with Retina display, and in addition to all the icons and the UI being compatible with Retina, so those icons are looking very crisp now on your Retina machine. We also have the ability to turn on Retina mode in the real-time view, which is this little display icon here, which you can see in the ribbon. I also have the heads-up display showing so you can see the resolution with Retina mode off, and then with Retina mode on, you can see that resolution doubles. So what's happening there is you're seeing twice the pixel density in the real-time view. So you're going to get a more crisp image on screen in the real-time view when you have Retina mode on. Keep in mind this will increase your real-time render speed because it does have to calculate twice the amount of pixels. Okay. Another item that I won't be able to show is the new multi-touch support. So this is for touch-supported Windows devices. If you have a little tablet or laptop with a touch display, you can now control KeyShot using a variety of gestural inputs. So one finger, two finger, etc. Will allow you to control the real-time view. So it's a cool way to share your KeyShot scene with clients or colleagues. Just pass around your Windows touchscreen tablet, and you can work with KeyShot right there. Okay, the next item would be animation playback, import, and rendering, which is now all available for KeyShot Pro users without the animation add-on. So if we open up KeyShot here, I'm using a Pro license, and I do have the animation add-on, but if I didn't have the add-on installed, and say a colleague shared a scene with an animation file, I can now open the animation timeline and I would see all those nodes in place. I would be able to scrub through and preview that. Let's just open an animation file. So let's say I didn't have the animation add-on, I would still be able to scrub through this, preview, and see that animation, and also render it out without actually having that add-on. So this is just with KeyShot Pro. And in addition to being able to open existing scenes with animation files, it'll also allow you to import animations that you've created in other CAD applications. For example, if you've created some mechanisms in Creo, you can bring those over and view all of those and render that out without the need for an animation add-on license. And that also goes for FBX animations. I'm just going to mute somebody here. Okay. Yeah, so if you are in Maya and you create some FBX animations, you can now import those into KeyShot, Playback, and render those out without actually having that animation add-on. Also, Cinema 4D, that's some new import support we've added for Cinema 4D, as you can see here. So if you've created an animation in Cinema 4D, you can bring that in and render that out. So while we're here, let me just show you how to save out your project from Cinema 4D. It's important that you save project for Melange here, and that will allow you to bring in all the data correctly into KeyShot. And if you do have animations in your scene, you'll also want to go to Preferences, and under Files here, make sure you have Save Animation for Melange and Save Polygons for Melange. Those should both be checked there in order for that data to properly import into KeyShot. Okay, so in addition to Cinema 4D support, we're now supporting PTC's Creo 3.0, so now you can do a direct import into KeyShot using Creo 3.0 files. We also have an updated plugin available to download under download sections here in plugins. So we have a new Creo plugin, and we also have a new SolidWorks plugin. So if anyone is updated to SolidWorks 2015, you may have noticed that the direct importer for that will not work in KeyShot. So in order to use your SolidWorks 2015 files, you'll want to download the plugin. And now this allows you to transfer over your NURBS data directly through the plugin. So that's a really great feature. Anyone that's using SolidWorks or Creo, I highly recommend to download and use these new plugins that we're offering. Okay, so enough of this technical stuff. Let's jump into KeyShot and have some fun. So I've set up this little GoPro scene. Before we talk about this, let's take a look at the Windows Explorer. Here's a cool new feature that we've added that's pretty simple, but really does have a nice benefit. Now you can see a thumbnail of your KeyShot scene in the Windows Explorer, and you can see that when using your icon view here. Any of these sizes will show that thumbnail. So I really enjoy this when, looking through my work folder. Maybe I'll just type in .bip, and then I get to see all these thumbnails of the bips I've created, and just makes it a lot easier to select my file and navigate to a certain file that I'm looking for, maybe if I don't know the name of it. Okay, so here in our little camera scene, I've set up some basic materials here, some new procedurals, so I'll go over how I've created this button look here, this radial brushed. Before we do that, I just want to show you guys the new DPI texture and label support. Maybe you've seen the YouTube video that we posted with the little blue KeyShot K cup, but again, I'll just show that here. It's very simple to use, so we'll hide the case, and there's also a piece of glass here covering the display. Okay, so we have our display here, and we know this camera was modeled at a 1:1 scale in our modeling software. This was actually modeled using millimeters in 3ds Max, I believe. So we want to make sure that we have our scene units set to the correct unit here. So we have millimeter selected. And we've created a graphic to put on our display. So we'll just double click to edit, go over to our textures tab, and we'll grab our texture here. So we have our display, and we know that this image was created also at a 1:1 scale. So let's say this was 5 centimeters wide in Photoshop, and was also this display was modeled at 5 centimeters wide in 3ds Max. So once we've loaded our texture, we have it selected. Keep in mind this also this feature is also available for labels as well, but for these purposes I'll just use the color texture here. So once we've applied that, we can select the box for DPI. We know that this was created at 300 DPI, and there we go. It fits perfectly at a 1:1 scale. We'll flip it horizontally just so that appears correctly. And let's see, we have this as a box map, so we're seeing a little runoff here. I think there's a little radius on this display. So then we'll just change this to a planar mode. This would be planar Y because it was modeled in Z up. So now you can see that image maps perfectly at a 1:1 scale to our display, and just makes it super easy to accurately map your textures and labels in your scene. So since this is a display, let's just change it to an emissive, give it a little glow, and show our case. And there we go. We have our display mapped accurately there using the DPI support. Okay, so then let's just jump into some of these procedural textures. Or let's see, as I rotate around this, you can see it's not exactly rotating on the model center. So in the past, we've always had the look at function. So using look at will center that point. That'll be the focal point for your camera. So you zoom in and zoom out. It'll be perfectly centered in your screen. We've also added a new option for center and fit model. So that's essentially look at for the top level model. That's a nice way to just center your view and center your camera's focal point. And you can also do that for the individual part as well. So look at is for the exact specific point that you're clicking on. Center and fit model will take the top level model and center that. Center and fit part, obviously centering the part, and then look at model center is essentially look at for the top level model. Okay, so let's take a look at this metal button we have here. I'll just go ahead and show only to make that a little easier, and I will look at, so that's centered in our camera view. So I've created this kind of brushed radial effect and this kind of blur that you see here. So let's take a look at those material properties to see what's going on. So we have a few different procedural textures applied here. Procedural textures are found under the texture type menu when you select any of these texture swatches. And what procedural textures allow you to do is to create highly customized textures without the need for a texture file. So you don't need to go into Photoshop and create any textures. You can just use this library of procedurals that we have available here. And as you make adjustments to your procedural texture, you can see those updates occurring in real time, and there's no need to go into Photoshop to make adjustments. So let's just remove all these for now to show you how I set that up. So I'm using a metallic paint here, and Tim Fayer has championed this material for the wheels on his Ferrari in the webinar that he did last month. And I think it's a great technique, gives you a lot of control. Metallic paint has texture options for all of the available swatches, color, specular, bump, and opacity. So we can utilize all those if we'd like to create this material. So under the procedural textures, you can see there are two different types, the 2D procedurals and 3D procedurals. So the 2D procedural is going to be very similar to your traditional texture map. So let's just add something here. It's like we may need to reduce the scale quite a bit. But as you can see, it asks for the projection type. So with the 2D procedurals, you're mapping your procedural just like you would with a traditional texture. So you're going to get these seams along the edges where the texture is wrapping and meeting. You still have the flexibility of the procedurals, being able to adjust these values. So that's definitely a plus of using the 2D procedurals, but the 3D procedurals take it to another level where you can imagine this would be like if you have a big piece of stone, for example, a piece of granite, which is another 3D procedural type, and you were to carve your part out of that material. So there wouldn't be any seams. There aren't any seams when using the 3D procedurals, and they wrap very nicely around complex edges and on complex surfaces. So you can see I've added this 3D brushed procedural. So there are 6 new procedural types in KeyShot 5.1, and those are the lattice circular, lattice polygon, brushed 3D, which is what I just applied and what I will be showing you now, camouflage. We've made improvements to the color gradient, which I'll show in a bit. And we also have spots and the wood advance. So I'll try and get to all of these and touch on them briefly as we go along. But for now, let's just continue with this radial brush pattern. So if I open the mapping tool here, we can see that the mapping tool is off to the side. So a new feature we've added, which is very simple but powerful, is the reset button for your mapping tool. So if we click that reset button, then we can see that mapping tool snaps into the center of that part, and we actually don't need to fuss around with any kind of positioning. That looks perfectly centered, and we get our radial brushed effect looking nicely there. So I applied this as a color texture. Maybe I'll just bring down that color number 1, which is the base color, so we don't have quite such high contrast between our brushed strokes here. And what I can do is just hold Alt and drag and drop to copy and sync that over to bump. And we can increase the bump height depending on the look that we want here. That looks nice and pronounced, so you guys can see that clearly on the webinar. I think that's starting to look nice. And so I had that that kind of specular blur effect. So what I did with that is got a little creative, and I used the lattice polygon procedural. And I know that the cylindrical mapping type, since this is a 2D procedural, you do have the option to change the different projection types. So I know that with a cylindrical mapping type, around the top of that cylinder, the texture is going to wrap and then come in, converge to a single point in the center. So it took a little time for me to play around with that and figure out how to get it to appear correctly. But let's see if we can set that up fairly quickly. So I think we'll just bring down the scale a little bit to see what we have going on here. That looks better. And under lattice, then we can bring down the spacing so that there's no gaps in between the lattice, and that will become a solid little triangle there. And I think this would just be a matter of increasing the scale a little bit to wrap that around. Okay, and then we can go under shape and just increase that fall off a little bit to soften those edges. So as you can see with some of these procedural textures, there are a lot of parameters to adjust. So there's no right or wrong answer here. You can get creative and just kind of keep working these values until you're able to achieve what you're looking for. Okay, so then we can adjust our color here. So we'll bring down this black value. Actually, I think since this is the top of the part, we're going to want some more light coming down from this direction. So I think I'll select a white for my color 2, and then kind of give this a bit of a gray value. So now we get that specular effect as you move around the part, and you can continue to adjust those values until you're happy with that look. You can also play around, and if you wanted more than 2 of these triangles here, you could get 4 or however many you want. Okay, so let's go ahead and show all of our parts. And maybe just go into performance mode to speed this up a little bit. So let's say we wanted to take this texture we've just created and copy it over to this other button here. So we can just copy our material and come over here and paste material. You want to make sure you're not linking that material because you're going to need to map it a little differently since it's oriented on this other axis here. So we'll paste our material so we know it's not linked, and go into edit. You can see that the radial effect is off because we have it in the wrong direction here. So we can go over to our color, open the mapping tool, and reset to see if that helps it. In this case, we'll probably need to rotate this 90 degrees or so. If you hold shift, then it'll snap in 15-degree increments. Okay, so there now we have our brushed effect centered, and we could do the same for our specular. Okay, so that was the procedural brush 3D. Let's jump over to another file to show how I've used some of the other procedural textures. So I'll open up a new session. Oh, this reminds me, we actually do have a new scene in our scenes folder, in your KeyShot resources folder. So on Windows, under Documents, KeyShot 5, and in your scenes folder, if you use the full installer, now you'll find this new scene, which is titled Procedurals.bip. And this just gives you an example of some of these new procedurals and how they can be used. So here we have a glass material with a gradient, as well as I believe this is the spots 3D procedural to create some kind of bubbles, a bubbled look inside this glass. You can also use the spots for a bokeh effect. So yeah, you can really get creative with these. I made this little life preserver material here, and that's what gave me the idea to use this on the radial brushed metal. So yeah, you can open this up and play around with it. But let's grab this other scene. Okay, so I put this little sunglasses scene together. I added a ground plane, and again used that metallic paint material, and I added a little bump and opacity map using the lattice circular. So the lattice circular and the lattice polygon are great for creating meshes, and you really have flexibility to make adjustments and to really dial these in to look correct. And then for our lenses here, we've used the color gradient. So let's just remove that and set these up, or set this color gradient material up. So here I just have a basic metal material to get that highly reflective, polished look of these cool lenses. So we'll select our color swatch and go over to color gradient. So you can see I didn't model these glasses, but when they were modeled, it looks like the lenses were grouped together, and our gradient isn't exactly centered here. So we're going to want to center this properly. We'll change this to a spherical type, so it is a radial gradient, and increase the scale so now you can kind of see where the center of that is. And if we open up our mapping tool, we can just pull this over to the center and select OK. So now we've centered our radial gradient, and we can go into our new gradient editor and we can change the colors here. So the outside, I want this to be kind of this blue or violet. And then for the inside, let's make this a little green. And you can continue to add as many colors as you'd like by clicking the plus icon here. Also, you can just drag colors from your color library, and you can drop those right into your gradient editor or into the color swatch there. So we've made this color gradient a lot more friendly to use. Just bring this up a little bit, and there we go. So there's a lot of flexibility with all of the new procedural textures and the adjustments we've made to the color gradient. Okay. Let's go back to our GoPro here. And let me just take a look at my notes, make sure I haven't missed anything yet. Okay, so let's take a look at the new pattern updates. And as we do that, I will continue to show you some more of the new procedurals, and we'll take a look at some other new materials that are available on KeyShot Cloud. So for now, let's go ahead and use the pattern tool. So this was a new feature that we added in KeyShot 5. If you select the top level of a model and right-click in the scene tree, you can then make pattern. And what the pattern tool does is it creates instances of your model. So as we increase these values, you can see that our model is patterned and instanced. We have a new option to adjust camera, and that'll automatically center your pattern as you make adjustments to keep that in view so you can see what you're doing. So what's great about the pattern tool is that since all of these are instances and they are not duplicates, they're actually referencing the original geometry. So this isn't adding to your file size. It allows you to create many instances of your model in your scene and still keep that file size low. So let's add a few more here. We'll rotate them maybe. We have a new scattering option, which just adds some randomness. If you don't want that pattern to be, perfect, we can add some scattering and displacement and make some adjustment to our spacing. And we can just go ahead and say OK for now and not have to worry about if this is perfect because of the new ability to edit pattern. So if we right-click on any of these instances of our model that were patterned, you'll see the option for Edit Pattern. So now we can open the Pattern Tool dialog back up. We can continue to adjust our values. We can switch it over to circular and adjust our values. So you now have a lot more flexibility there with the pattern tool and being able to edit and make adjustments to that. Now keep in mind, if you save this file, close it, and reopen it, you will not have the option for edit pattern. And also, if you were to create a second pattern in your scene, then you will no longer be able to edit the original pattern. So just keep that in mind. So a good practice when using the pattern tool is to just make sure that pattern is how you like it before closing and opening that file again. Okay, so now that we have our pattern in our scene, let's just go over a few more of these procedural textures that I haven't touched on yet. Another thing about the pattern tool and these instanced models is that these all behave independently from each other now, even though they're referencing the original model. So I just edited this clear plastic material, and maybe I'll reduce my specular transmission so it's no longer transparent. And we can go ahead and add a color texture, say a camouflage. And you can see that none of the other models are changing the material since these are all independent and unlinked. Now, maybe you do want them to be linked. There is an option for this in Preferences. If we go to Preferences and under Advanced, you have the option to link materials of duplicate parts. So if this is selected, if this is checked, then when you do create a pattern, all of the common materials will be linked. So if you make adjustments to one, then all of them will adjust as well. But the default value is that these all act independently. So then we've added our procedural camo material here. And new in the color library, when using the full installer, you will see a new folder here for the Federal Standard 595 camouflage colors. So these are the official colors of the U.S. military, and you can just drag and drop these into your color swatches for your camo and create that look you're going for. Okay, another very cool procedural would be the wood advanced. So let's just change this to a diffuse and scroll down and add that wood advanced material. So this is a huge improvement on our original wood material. You can see there are many new parameters. So you can create a highly customized wood material. We now have the option to add knots. So let's increase our scale here so we can see what's going on. So you can see now we have some knots in here. If you look closely, there's some wood grain as well. So you can get very detailed and create some really cool wood materials with this new advanced wood procedural. And that is a 3D procedural, so it's going to wrap nicely around all those edges and corners, and you're not going to see any seams when using this one. Okay, so let's go ahead and launch KeyShot Cloud and take a look at some of the new materials we've uploaded here. So on the KeyShot Cloud, the resources are by default organized by upload time. So if we scroll down, we'll start to see the new Sorensen leather materials that we've uploaded. So there's over 200 new Sorensen leather materials. You can also search for those by using the tag Sorensen. And this is a protected tag, so anyone else uploading cannot use this tag. Yeah, you can verify that all these Sorensen materials, if we just click on one, bring up the details pane, you can see this little blue ribbon on the corner means that that was verified by the KeyShot team and that this is a very high quality material. So we can download that directly to our KeyShot library, and we can also make a multi-selection by holding Control on Windows or Command on Mac, and then right-click, and you can add a multi-selection of materials to your KeyShot library. So if we close the cloud, go back to our materials library, and under that downloads folder, which is found at the top, you can see we now have our Tango sand, and we can apply that material in our scene. And you can see that the material has some nice grain to it. And for, this is by default box mapped, is a seamless texture, so if that's mapped correctly, you shouldn't be getting any seams on the edges, and that looks really good there. If we zoom in, you can see a little bit of a seam, but you can go ahead and adjust your mapping type just like any other texture, and to make sure that's mapped ideally on your model. Okay. We have about 15 minutes left, so I just want to quickly touch on a few more items, and then we can open it up to questions. So let's go ahead and create a camera. We'll save this camera here. So now that we have a saved camera, let's say we're working in our scene and setting up materials. If we were doing that, we'd be in our Materials tab here. Now we've added this camera reset icon to the ribbon, so at any time when we're working in our scene, we can just click that reset button and it'll snap back to that saved camera. And let's just add a view set as well. And if we go into our render options under the queue, so obviously the queue is for KeyShot Pro users only, and this new feature, Add Cameras, is also a Pro-only feature. So this new Add Cameras and View Sets allows you to add all of your saved cameras or a selection of your saved cameras to the queue. So if you have a front, back, and 3/4 view, you can quickly add those to your queue and then process instead of having to add each individual camera. So just another option to help speed up your workflow and help send those renderings through a little faster. While we're in the render output window, you might notice a couple new options under Format. We now support Photoshop and Photoshop 32-bit documents. For now, these are a single layer. So if you're rendering your image and planning on opening it up in Photoshop to do some post work, I highly recommend using either of these two format options. They do allow for a larger size than TIFF. So if you are rendering an image that's larger than 4 gigs, so that's going to be really big, I think 20,000, I'm sorry, I think it's 80,000 pixels or larger, TIFF will not let you do that, but with the new PSD output you can. And look forward in the future for a layered PSD output, so your passes and your render layers are all combined into that file. So that's not currently available, but look out for that in KeyShot 6. I think that should be a huge improvement that is going to make a lot of people happy. Okay. Another little thing is just the ability to do some grouping in the HDRI editor. So if you have multiple pins in here, we can add a group, and we can now use grouping to help organize our custom HDRI, and that's pretty straightforward, pretty simple to use. But that was requested by a few customers, so we went ahead and added that in there. Okay, a couple last things is that KeyShot Pro now supports machines with over 64 cores. Probably doesn't apply to most of you at home, but if you do have a beefy box workstation or something with over 64 cores, now KeyShot fully utilizes all of those cores and threads. We have a couple improvements to KeyShot VR, so now it's responsive and dynamically resizes with your web page. And there's also some instructions for it to be mobile responsive that output in that VR file as well. And then we have some updates to network rendering. So if I just launch my network rendering queue, you can notice this may look a little different if you've used network rendering in the past. We now take the theme from KeyShot. So if you're using the light theme in KeyShot, then you'll have the light theme in the queue. If you're using the dark theme, then when you restart the queue, it will also show the dark theme in here. And we have this new dockable slave status window. So you can hide and show that to see all your slaves. And most importantly, we have an optimized transfer of multiple jobs from KeyShot. So those jobs are going to transfer over more quickly with a lot more stability. So yeah, those are the a lot of new features in KeyShot. Hopefully you guys can use some of these features to create some awesome images. And I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions for the next 10 minutes. I see Josh has joined us and has been answering some questions. So Josh, are you there? Are there any questions that I can answer? I guess not. Well, let me just look through this list then and see if anything hasn't been addressed. Okay, looks like, let's see, Todd Miller joined a few minutes late. He saw the way that I centered the model. He asked if this is a Pro-only feature. Can't find it in HD. No, it's not Pro-only. You should have it in the HD version as long as you are updated on the latest. You want to make sure you go to the KeyShot webpage. You can just go over this again. KeyShot.com. Under Resources, Updates, and make sure you download that latest version. So right now the latest public version is 5.1.57, and to verify that inside of KeyShot on Windows, you can go under Help, About, and see what version you're running. I'm running a little bit newer development build here. But yeah, all of you guys should be on 5.1.57. Looks like Renato is having some issues importing 3D. I'm not sure if that's a 3ds Max you're referring to, or just CAD in general. But if you have any support questions, you can go ahead and, okay, he's using the step format. So if you have any issues with support, then go ahead and send an email to support@luxion.com, and we'll have somebody to assist you with any of those issues. All right, so those were the new features in KeyShot 5.1. Again, a recording of this video will be available on youtube.com/KeyShot3D for you to watch at any time. That video should be posted early next week. Sean is currently out of town. He's at Autodesk University in Las Vegas. But when he returns, he will be able to upload that. Renato asked when do we plan to launch the next upgrade or update. So we're actually we don't have plans for a 5.2 at this time, but there may be. It's most important to if you have those automatic updates turned on, just make sure you're updating on the latest, and maybe check the check the website to see if there are any new updates. But we will probably be releasing another silent update shortly. So yeah, just stay updated and keep an eye out. And yeah, thank you everyone for attending. I do not believe we will have a webinar this month because of the holidays, so we'll talk to you again in January in the new year. All right, thank you.